The movie Let the Right One In begins in the bleak suburbs of Stockholm in the early 1980s. The atmosphere is cold, both in temperature and in the emotional climate of the neighborhood. Snow blankets the ground, the trees are bare, and a sense of isolation lingers in the air. This is the world where 12-year-old Oscar lives, a shy and lonely boy who feels invisible to most people, except to his bullies. Oscar's life is plagued by constant torment at the hands of three classmates, Connie, the ringleader, and his accomplices Martin and Andreas. These boys find sadistic pleasure in making Oscar's school life miserable. Connie, the most brutal, humiliates Oscar daily, often resorting to violence while Oscar silently endures. The teachers and other students look the other way, leaving Oscar trapped in his silent suffering. Despite the torment, Oscar never fights back. Instead, he keeps all his anger bottled up inside, replaying violent fantasies in his head where he exacts revenge on his tormentors. Oscar's fantasies are dark. He imagines stabbing Connie and his friends, plotting ways to hurt them as they've hurt him. Alone in the courtyard of his apartment complex, he takes a small knife and practices stabbing trees, pretending that the tree is one of the boys who have wronged him. These small acts of imagined violence are the only way Oscar can release the tension and fear that have built up inside him. However, Oscar is also deeply curious and intelligent. He reads books about crime and collects news clippings about murders, imagining himself as someone capable of great power. Yet, despite these fantasies, Oscar is just a scared and timid boy, afraid of standing up for himself in real life. His world is lonely. He lives with his loving but overprotective mother, while his father is distant, living far away in the countryside. It's in this cold, desolate environment that Oscar's life takes an unexpected turn when new neighbors move into the apartment next door. One evening, while Oscar is out in the courtyard with his knife, he notices a strange girl, Eli, and an older man, Hakan, moving into the flat next door to his. The first thing that strikes him as odd is that they immediately cover the windows of their apartment with cardboard, as though they are trying to block out the outside world. From the outside, Eli appears to be an ordinary girl, about the same age as Oscar. However, it quickly becomes clear that Eli is far from normal. Unknown to Oscar, Eli is actually a vampire, an ancient being who has been alive for centuries, forever trapped in the body of a 12-year-old child. Eli relies on Hakan, who is not her father as Oscar assumes, but her caretaker, to provide her with the blood she needs to survive. Hakan has dedicated his life to serving Eli, in a way that is both disturbingly devoted and tragic. His role is to capture victims and drain their blood for Eli, ensuring that she never goes hungry. However, Hakan is growing increasingly ineffective in his gruesome task. He is not as efficient or careful as he once was. When he makes his first attempt at securing blood for Eli after moving into their new apartment, things go terribly wrong. Hakan stalks a victim, knocks him out with anesthetic gas, and prepares to drain his blood, but something goes awry. He panics and leaves the scene in a rush, forgetting to take the blood he's collected. Without this vital source of sustenance, Eli is left starving. Her hunger grows, and as it does, so does her desperation. Despite Eli's initial stand of fishness, she slowly begins to soften. One evening, Oscar shares his Rubik's Cube with her, explaining how to solve the puzzle. Eli is fascinated by it, and Oscar feels a small sense of connection forming between them. After Oscar goes inside for the night, Eli is left with the Rubik's Cube, and the next morning, Oscar finds it solved, left for him in the courtyard. This small gesture is the first sign of the bond developing between them. Eli's hunger, however, cannot be ignored. One night, she goes hunting, waiting in the shadows under a bridge. As a man named Jock walks by, Eli calls out to him, pretending to be a lost and helpless little girl. When Jock tries to help her, Eli attacks, sinking her fangs into his neck and draining his blood. This brutal act is witnessed by a man named Gosta, who watches in horror from his apartment window. Before anyone can discover Jock's body, Hakan disposes of it, throwing it into a frozen pond to hide the evidence of Eli's crime. As Eli continues her nocturnal feeding, Oscar's struggles at school intensify. Connie and his friends are relentless in their cruelty. One day, they corner Oscar after class and demand to see what he's been copying from an encyclopedia. Oscar refuses, and in response, the bullies beat him, whipping his legs with sticks and even slashing his face. Humiliated and hurt, Oscar tells his mother that he fell during recess to avoid revealing the truth. When Oscar meets Eli again, he confides in her about the bullying. Eli, who has lived a life of isolation and violence, encourages Oscar to stand up for himself. She tells him that if he fights back, the bullies will leave him alone. If not, she promises to help him in her own way. This advice sparks something inside Oscar, a glimmer of confidence that had long been buried under fear. Oscar takes Eli's advice to heart. He signs up for the school's weightlifting program, determined to get stronger and defend himself. This newfound sense of empowerment also strengthens his connection to Eli. The two continue to meet regularly, sharing small moments of companionship. Oscar teaches Eli the Morse code he copied from the encyclopedia, and they begin to communicate through the wall that separates their apartments by tapping messages to each other. While Oscar grows closer to Eli, Hakan's jealousy and desperation reach a breaking point. He sees that Eli is becoming attached to Oscar, and though he doesn't understand the nature of their bond, he feels threatened. He knows that Eli relies on him for survival, but he also realizes that he's failing her. In a final act of devotion, Hakan attempts to secure more blood for Eli. This time, Hakan targets a young student in a school gym. He manages to knock the boy unconscious and is about to drain his blood when the boy's friends arrive. Caught in the act and with no way to escape, Hakan chooses to disfigure himself by pouring acid on his face. He does this to ensure that he cannot be identified if caught, but it also serves as a grim act of self-sacrifice for Eli. When Eli learns that Hakan has been taken to the hospital, she visits him in his final moments. Though Hakan's face is horribly disfigured, his loyalty to Eli remains unwavering. Knowing that he can no longer provide for her, he offers her his blood. Eli feeds on him, and Hakan dies, leaving her to fend for herself. It's a tragic end to their complicated relationship, one built on dependence and a twisted form of love. Oscar grows stronger and more confident. The dynamic between him and his bullies begins to shift. During a school trip to a frozen pond, Connie and his friends confront Oscar once again. This time, they plan to push him into an ice hole, but Oscar, fueled by Eli's advice and his growing sense of self-worth, fights back. Armed with a stick, he strikes Connie across the head, drawing blood and stunning the bullies. At the same time, another discovery is made. The body of Jock, one of Eli's victims, is found frozen in the ice. The police are called, and the community becomes gripped with fear and uncertainty as they try to piece together the series of strange events that have been occurring. Despite the horror surrounding her, Eli's bond with Oscar continues to deepen. Oscar starts to realize that there is something unusual about Eli. She never eats food, and her appearance is often unkempt and pale. One night, Oscar visits her apartment, and the truth finally comes to light. Eli asks Oscar if she can come in without being invited. When Oscar teases her by refusing, Eli steps inside anyway, and blood begins to pour from her skin. It's a shocking and horrifying moment for Oscar, but it confirms what he had begun to suspect. Eli is not a normal girl. She's something much darker, something dangerous. Yet, even as he learns the truth, Oscar's feelings for Eli do not change. He accepts her for who she is, a vampire who survives on blood but who has also become his closest friend. Oscar's acceptance of Eli is a turning point in both their lives. For the first time in centuries, Eli has found someone who sees her not as a monster, but as a person. And for Oscar, Eli represents the first real friendship and emotional connection he's ever had. Their relationship, though unconventional, transcends the boundaries of age, gender, and even humanity. As Eli's secret becomes harder to conceal, trouble brews within the community. Lackey, a friend of Jock and Virginia, becomes suspicious after Virginia is attacked and turned into a vampire by Eli. Lackey discovers Eli's true nature and decides to take matters into his own hands. He tracks Eli to her apartment, determined to kill her and end the threat she poses. Breaking into Eli's home, Lackey finds her sleeping in the bathtub, shielded from the daylight. He prepares to expose her to the sun, but Oscar, who has been keeping watch over Eli, intervenes just in time. Oscar's warning wakes Eli, and in a swift and violent attack, she kills Lackey. Realizing that it's no longer safe for her to stay, Eli decides that she must leave the neighborhood. She shares a final moment with Oscar, thanking him for his friendship and for saving her life. Then, she disappears into the night. Oscar's final confrontation with the bullies is the most intense and terrifying moment of his young life. After Eli's departure, Connie and his friends, along with Connie's older brother Jimmy, plot their final act of revenge. They lure Oscar to the school's swimming pool, where Jimmy gives him a brutal choice: either hold his breath underwater for 3 minutes, or lose an eye. Oscar is forced underwater, his lungs burning as he struggles to stay conscious. But just as Oscar is about to drown, Eli returns. In a sudden and bloody rampage, she kills Connie, Jimmy, and the other bullies, saving Oscar's life once again. Oscar is pulled from the water, dazed but alive. The massacre is swift and merciless, and when Oscar surfaces, he sees the dismembered bodies of his tormentors scattered around the pool. It's a shocking moment, but one that brings a definitive end to Oscar's long nightmare of bullying. The film concludes with Oscar sitting on a train, a large box beside him. Eli is inside the box, hidden from the daylight, as they make their escape together. The tapping of Morse code between them reveals their final message, PUSS, meaning kiss, in Swedish. It's a bittersweet ending to a story about friendship, loneliness, and survival. Oscar has chosen to leave behind the world he once knew and follow Eli, embarking on a new journey with his vampire companion. Together, they face an uncertain future, bound by their shared need for love and acceptance.